please allow me to give you a round of applause. Thank you for letting me join in on y'all's new moon talk over at the Great David Ways.
Yeah. That was the full moon. Full moon.
I mean, sorry, full moon. We're new moon, right?
We're new moon. We're always the new moon.
This is how you know I'm, still got my edge. I don't know about any of this stuff.
Yeah. It's all good.
So we left the dog moon, and I completely skipped it. And anyone who's listening, I mean, we have a small little viewership over here, and anyone that missed it, just know, no, you didn't. Just sleep in.
No, you did. Yeah. Right.
So hope everyone slept in, and now we're entering into the pig moon, right? This is your moon.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yes, it is. This is the pig moon.
How are you doing?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I just want to see how you're doing. I mean, pigs and moons are cool and all, but I mean, how are you?
I'm good.
I'm good.
It's been, I mean, for me, like the coming into winter, Ming once said that like the 8th moon is like his favorite moon because it's like full on autumn. And you're cutting ties and you're drawing inward, and he really appreciated that sense of retirement, you know.
Wait, we're in the 8th moon out of 12?
No. This is what he was talking about.
Okay.
With respect to like his appreciation for the moons. One of his favorites was the 8th moon, which is the last moon of autumn, and for its encouragement of retirement. Like pretty quickly, the Chinese calendar, the almanac, basically says, I should stop now.
Okay.
This is back in the 8th moon is talking about retirement. And I think that for me, I feel a similar kind of way. There's a level of refreshment and there's a level of feeling more safe, when you get out of summer, when you get out of like the busy time of summer. As we've talked about before in different videos, like the worldview and the cosmology of this particular astrological tradition sees like summer as actually a kind of a time of threat. It's a demonic time. That's when the demons are actually loose in the world, is because like things go crazy, because Yang-Chi is so elevated past its kind of controllable aspects. And when you go to yin, like, what's the danger of too much yin? Oh, you sleep in, like for the Chinese tradition, it was like, there can't really be too much yin, maybe occasionally I want to get something done and I feel like I need to drink more tea, but like more rest really isn't a problem. From the Chinese tradition. Now that's not how our culture views the world.
Yeah.
We're quick to declare stagnation, as a sin, and that's not the lens that we're talking from here. So, right. I mean, transitioning in from the 9th moon, which is the one we just left, that is the dog moon. That is a kind of a declaration. It's a really fascinating time. Just as a recap. Because we are basically storing. We're really finalizing the storage harvest process. And in that, we're also declaring what's of value to us. Like we're basically in this place of great gratitude, when it comes to like a harvest mentality, being thankful what you got and all the different expressions of loyalty in your life, and how those nourish you, what you talked about in your journeys over the last month, this exploration of community and what that really actually means. The 9th moon is like a really strong pivotal time to recognize both the current manifestations of community and then also how they're tied ancestrally, right? So like there's always a tie to the history, to the past. Like Chinese tradition, bottom line, in any of its writings, any of its philosophies, the key difference between the Chinese tradition and the Western tradition is that the Chinese tradition is looking back to legitimize what it's doing. and the Western tradition is looking back to break it, and that's the new legitimate thing, right? So it's very key difference, between East and West, is that the East looks backwards, looks into the past in order to justify and legitimize its own current activities, whereas the West is very interested in looking back in order to break it. Like, you can't look back to legitimize what you're doing unless it's nostalgic, unless you're like sampling the music from the 70s or something like that, but you're somehow making a twist and making it better, when you might have well just left it alone, right? Don't remake the classics, just actually enjoy the classics. That would be the
but that new Ghostbusters movie, I heard, was pretty good. I'm just kidding.
They should do the Shawshank again.
Oh yeah.
Or Fight Club. So in the ninth moon there is this kind of consolidation, and concentration of value, like of what we understand as value. Now we're going into the 10th moon.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Because I'm like, how many moons?
But you can't really talk about the next moon without like really understanding where we're coming from.
That's without the whole talking point. About all the other moons, apparently.
All the other moons. Yeah. I mean, in some ways, like, that is kind of the deal. Like, right. They don't work in isolation. They work as a sequence.
Okay.
And it's one of my favorite things to say lately has been, as a Chinese astrologer going into winter, there's less and less to say. You should pretty much have everything figured out, and you should be coasting at this point, because there is no more growth. There is no real productivity available until spring. Okay. So what is the point of the growth of yin? Good luck with that. Like, there is no point. Like, it's only stop, ultimately what we're talking about is yin, which is like, it is spaciousness without the need for purpose. Like, so you gotta kind of disconnect from that right away. It's not to say that there isn't some nourishment available. Of course there is. But like, in and of itself, the growth of yin does not trend in a direction. Like, that's not the point at all. What we do with it is important. And like that there are 2 points that I thought were really important to talk about with the 10th moon, which is the moon we're going into. The first one is appetite, right? Like pigs, appetite. Well, what is appetite? Appetite is basically how we determine value. And when there's no more, we always talk about outsourcing, outsourcing what your value is. When you get to the 10th moon, that's not really the deal anymore. You should be going inward, In any other year, that's the deal. But especially in a water rabbit year, where the whole thing is about going inward, right? So once we get to the first moon of winter, in some ways is the deepest moon, because once we get to the 11th moon, which is the rat moon, about a third of the way through, or about halfway through, we're hitting the solstice, and that's the pivot back towards spring, which doesn't happen right away, but that it is the kind of bottom of the pool, and you start going back up. Right. So this is like, between now, winter begins tomorrow, and in that process and through the entirety of the 10th moon is this descent, into yin, into this kind of spaciousness or darkness, shadow, where things are already slowing down, like your fluids should be slowing down, solidifying. Like, this moon in particular is described as cold, like the cold wind emerges. And cold wind is moving toward the ground, like lightning. It's moving toward the ground. And it's hardening, and reducing the capacity for any kind of generation. Like in the 10th moon, in the pig moon, the water pig moon is the one we're going into. Heaven and earth technically separate. And they go their separate directions, There's all the legends, the dragons like move up to they decide to go swimming, so they go up to the highest lakes in the mountains, and then the water freezes and traps them, so they can't and it's all the great animal spirits are going to the spirit realm. They're going to heaven, So like all the great shamans follow them, and then survive in the wilderness, and that kind of like disconnect. There's a disconnect that's emblematic of like heaven and earth, basically pausing their productive partnership and going their separate ways for a while, like
it's such a mind, like, yeah, because we go into holidays and then, as a self-employed person, it's like, it's all about marketing and making money and, people, and it's all about spending. And that's never been what the holidays have been about for me. I mean, holidays have been for me personally when everyone goes off and stresses out. I mean, I was in the service industry, so it's like my family, we just kind of took that time to just be like, y'all stress out. If it makes you stressed out or treat others worse, go ahead and don't partake in that. And then, then there's always the but it's really about getting together with family. And you're like, cool, then get together with family. But if it's around expectations, you got to get to the thing, and the airports are crazy and all that stuff. It's like, it's kind of counter to, the energy, right?
From the Chinese perspective, or from this tradition's perspective, is a perfect a demonstration of the ghostly nature of...
It's a perfect storm of ghosts.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And because we are also looking at a very liminal time, as yin is dominant, with winter begins, and this last moon, like it's this transition into winter, as yin has been growing to the point where it's like steadily burying yang qi. So the recommendation for longevity's purpose is to store, yang within, let it go in and down. Don't let it come back out. Like no sweating, no, all these different interesting esoteric practices about how you preserve yang within. Because if you're letting it out and you're constantly spending, you're bustling and stressing yourself out and, constantly stimulating yourself, you reach this place of depletion very easily. And then your capacity, when it comes to springtime, is all external. So you can only come to freshness by, the first fresh thing that grows, you consume it, like that is, it's all externalized rather than having resources within that you're able to then use in this kind of discerning way so that you're not, shoved around by spring. You can actually navigate it. You have some sort of internal basis for making judgment, because yin is potential. Yin is value. To be able to make value is very yin. So when yin is so rich, basically this notion of appetite comes into play, and if we're sharing value and we're continuing to declare what's of value, this is the connection to the ninth moon, where we have this process of commitment and recommitment and trust in community that comes with this sort of transitional moon into the pig moon. Then we're expanding that, we're sharing it. We're basically participating in this really broad exchange of heart and vulnerability and intimacy, especially in a rabbit moon. This is very heightened, pigs and rabbits. There'll be a lot of babies born next summer, like from this moon, because there is this deep intimacy that's available during this moon because of the intensification of the season. So another thing that I was thinking about, the second thing, not just this exploration of appetite, which actually does require you to sit and reflect about it, to be reminiscent, to go inward, to basically have your own exploration of like, what is your appetite? What is your value? I told clients all the time, you can track the course of your life by exploring what was of value. What was your appetite? I was really into yoga, so I spent, 10 years, in whatever pursuit, being able to track your appetite is actually pretty essential in the Chinese tradition to understanding and to grasp the experience of what it means to be a human being, because you're going through these processes all the time. You can call this like personal growth. but it's inevitably and inherently in the exploration of your own appetite, you're going to be connecting and sharing and being influenced and influencing other people in this kind of constant cross-pollination. This is very big.
You're just saying, we're done.
Kind of.
Chill
yeah.
out. And
Right.
focus on preserving.
Understanding the Chinese tradition is to basically recognize that a big part of what defines our humanity is how we've established ourselves in nature. Right? And
Okay.
nothing is more fundamental to that than an expression for ourselves, like what it means to be a human being, than the agricultural mindset. It's very, very important from the Chinese tradition that our humanity is actually centered around this agricultural understanding of life.
Okay.
So we're sedentary, and because we've been able to have a storehouse, like nomads have a form of justice that isn't in the record books. It doesn't get recorded, because it's transitory by nature, and is also reflective of their lifestyle. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing bad about that. It's just to say that in a pig moon, like what we have available to us, because we have a sedentary culture, because we have this agricultural capacity to grow food and not have to roam to look for food, is that we have culture. We get to express what's of value to us and then have it in a feedback loop and share it. Is music, Mozart, movies, all of those things that we enjoy, that stimulate our imagination and feed our hearts, that we share with other people, like is all contingent on this sedentary lifestyle. It's all contingent on this agrarian mindset. This is like extreme. This is an opportunity within pig, is not only just the individual and how we share appetites, but then how it transforms us, how we're able to go inward into this kind of great expanse of a pretty malleable condition. It's kind of a dream state. And if you think about it, pig is the falling asleep every day, between 9 and 11 p.m. So in this moon, it's kind of like a waking dream state, from a chi perspective, has this malleability to it, that because at this point, differentiation, our separation becomes loose. Like we're actively sharing with one another, not have to say anything, just be in the same room with one another. The dead are very close, like this kind of liminal aspect of our world. And so there's a lot of ways that we're informed. Let's put it that way. Like our appetites, so I'm not surprised. And how can you be surprised? Everyone knows why we're so crazy in this culture during that time, and why this is a perfect time for people to commit suicide. This is a perfect time for people to have self-destructive behaviors, because they're participating in a ghostly activity that has a long precedent within our society. So, I mean, there's no surprise, we get depleted very quickly, and then we treat each other badly because we are overly aggressive or fearful, self-indulgent, and overstimulated. So so there's no, from this particular cosmology, there's no judgment. It's just consequence. It's resultant. Like if you pay attention to what you value and the appetites that you carry, you come into connection with what you're doing, what you're actually doing. So if people did that, maybe I don't need this other beer. They might make different choices this moon, perhaps, or they're just in the momentum of the water.
I had a session this morning. I'm just kind of coming out of it, and a big part of it was on the remembering the why. Like, just remember the why. Remember your why. Sure. When I make art, it's like, why am I making art? I'm making it because I love creating things with people, and I do love making money off the art that I create, but I still got to remember why I'm making it, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean the advantage to having a storehouse, that you in the autumn that you've created, is so you can forget. Yeah. Is so you can drift, because and again, spaciousness without need for purpose. Like it's not that it makes you better, when you come
Yeah.
back out of it. It's just that you're actually in alignment with what's happening. What is the availability of the ecosystem and the chi ecosystem around us is not to continue to be aggressive and focus and like all of those things. Like it's actually it's not going to land. It's kind of like using a knife on jello. It's just going to wiggle and then heal back up and like as if you never touched it. So it's a little bit like that. So I mean, so you can, in terms of like what to say or advise how to manage this, like the best thing I could ever come up with is that like, okay, we have ways of exercising very hard, and how we substantiate that movement is then by sitting very still, right, and in stretching and eating well. So there's a way in which everything's just going to collapse into dormancy on its own. So there's no grade. You don't get a grade for the big moon. It is just going to go the way it's going to go. And so just be ready for that. So if you're overextended and you finally collapse and sleep for 3 days, like good for you. You finally dropped out, instead of just pressing through. So if I was going to give anybody bullet points, it's just like nourish yourself, gain weight, be comfortable. Don't worry. If there are things that drop off that you're just like, damn, I can't maintain it. I guess I'll try and pick it up in the spring. Like, cool. Like you shouldn't judge yourself on it. You should be all right with that. In letting it go. And then the other thing is to, be generous and caring and connected, to the people that, the storehouse of intimacy that you already have. Like, don't need to go create new relationships. You need to just be in the ones you have.
Yeah.
There's no more radically changing your condition. That's done. That's been done. But now it's like really clear. Like you got what you got, so you should really enjoy it.
All right. So who's made for this? Who's shining?
Yeah. So who's shining and who's shining in the shadows?
Yeah.
I think that it's as we've already mentioned, there's like no grade, there's no direct protocol for how to behave. And so, the question of like what chi characters don't
dogs
do well.
or roosters and are not feeling this.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Like I think there's some chi characters that prefer clear boundaries, like dogs, rats, roosters, even goats to some degree. So, I would say to any of those chi characters, carry on with what you've already cultivated in the ninth moon. No big changes. Just keep hanging out with the same people and like keep on the same routine. And the pig moon will pass by, without much of a worry. And in fact, you might have like some, pleasant surprises, that happen inside those boundaries. And that's kind of like, well, I just really had a really great time with my friend that I've had the same lunch with every Thursday, for the past year and a half. But this one was like really amazing. And like you can have those kinds of moments where something like very, very ordinary is somehow hyper activating your heart, in a way that like makes you feel very close to that person. Very, very good. Like these are very good experiences. I think that when it comes to enjoyment in a pig moon, it really is the ordinary stuff that matters most. Like you can, hypersexualize and you can go on some big, experience where you're like really activated, something intense, but you'll probably burn out in that experience pretty quickly. It's the ordinary things, the ordinary sensations that you've been doing all year long. Somehow this year, this time of year, you're just like, this tea is really good. Like it's that, I love this breakfast, So I think that it's like, so those that are like your dragons, sometimes your snakes, because it's such a straightforward and kind of obvious chi, particularly with snakes, there's just not as many places to hide. in that kind of transparency, of the pig. So snakes might feel cornered at times, by the chi of it, by that kind of like in your face sort of sensuality. But rabbits are definitely made for this. This will feel like a balm, like they'll feel just more relaxed, potentially. But what's interesting about this is that if they're, for everybody, there's no litmus test about how vulnerable or how intimate you should be. It's only what you have available, by your own chi character. So even a tiger who's very inconsistent, with their availability, or monkeys, also very inconsistent. If they're in the right community, in a forgiving environment, it's fine. Everybody has, with a pig moon, everybody has a place at the table. That's the point. So if you have the capacity, if you can offer that to other people, it's very good. Like, keep the ball rolling. Don't overanalyze emotions, please. Like, just let it go. Because the minute you try to focus on something, it's already gone. That's the idea. So it's really about just keeping the ball rolling, for everyone. Horses, who else do we talk about? Horses and dragons, they tend to sort of slide over the surface of this very easily, not really moved one way or the other. And when it comes to oxen, they are just like everybody's best friend right now, So they should also take some time for themselves, because the level of emotional availability that they might be asked for could become exhausting. But it really just has everything to do with, like, what is the storehouse of our intimacy? We should already know, if you're insecure, materially, emotionally insecure, like deeply insecure during this moon, it can be very rough. There's darkness. The flip side to the pig's joy is a level of depression that no other chi character can touch. Like, they can go straight to the bottom of the darkest pool. So it really is like, don't overextend yourself as much as possible. Lean on others. If there are people that that are struggling, like, be very generous with them. Like, call them, just send them a text, tell them you love them. Don't hold back, be kind of like an open book, to anybody. So, and pigs, yes, pigs do well this moon, but they are also capable of great swings in mood and depression and all of those things. So I'm not saying pigs are like, yay, you got everything you need. Like, maybe, but it's pig chi is very contextual, because everything's kind of relative, because we're in this yin place of like constant transmission and transformation. So if you can be open to that and you don't tense up too much, I think it could be a really lovely time. But you really have to work with your expectations. And obviously, you and I already know a lot of us have a problem with that.
Yep.
So
yep.
So it then circles around to appetite, back to this place of appetite. Can you become aware, if we want to talk, I've been non-committal in a lot of ways in this talk, but if we want to actually talk about like ways to help people or self-improve, it's to slow down and like actually try to tap in to, as you mentioned, the why.
Yeah, the thing that I notice is like one of the hardest energies to manage is like wanting to help or wanting to save things or wanting to be of service, right? Because a lot of times you'll see, especially at this time, like I want to go in and I want to help somebody, but like I kind of have conditions around the way I want to help. Like I want to go to dinner with you, but I don't want to do the dishes. I want to cook like it's kind of that thing. Like I have expectations of my help is very conditional.
Right.
And I was talking to someone that actually I've talked to a few people about this, about like in this time, one of the best things you could do for world peace is just when you're around someone, be nice to them. Because then they're going to carry that joy and that peace to their families and everything because they had a good interaction with you. It's not about trying to do anything big. It's like understanding like, hey, mine and your interaction is going to carry through, because like we're coming into a time where we're kind of getting into our intimate communities and we're going to fall into our old scripts. So like, if when you go here, all they talk about is politics and makes everyone angry, but if you can bring joy into someone's life and, you know, and they're going to bring that joy into those tense situations, or if you know, if there's stresses of this, or even all the shopping and errands and to-do lists and expectations. But if your interaction with someone is like clean and just simple, you might actually do more than if you like opened up a stupid nonprofit to bring peace to people. You know what I mean? Like, it's probably a lot more effective. Yeah,
I mean, it is kind of in the ordinary experiences of our collective action where we find the capacity for transformation. I mean, obviously, you know, desperate situations, especially, you know, the only thing I'll say is that there's a reason why in the calendar of the almanac, the ninth moon is considered to be the most barbaric time to start a war. It's like off the chart, the most barbaric time to start a war. Like you don't start a war going into winter. Like you just don't, you know, because it's understood. And by barbaric, I mean a lack of humanity, you know, not barbaric.
And it's going to exhaust everyone, even your people.
Sure.
Everyone suffers. Yeah.
That's right. Because this is the time, according to the calendar, where everybody should be going home to their people. To their tribes, their ancestral lands. Everyone should be going home safely. Right. So, and to be in those kind of safe spaces. So that we're in the situation we're in is incredibly dire by virtue of the calendar. And in particular in the pig moon, has a level of potential desperation to it that can become extreme, right? So it's an incredibly tenuous moment by virtue of the calendar for this 10th moon that should be watched very closely because you know what we cultivate in the rabbit moon expresses to greater scale in the dragon moon. That's the basic calculus in moving from rabbit to dragon. What we cultivate, you know, in the rabbit, then, you know, really blooms and takes off in the dragon. So if we are cultivating this kind of level of abject desperation and terror, then, you know, it's not a good look. And in the general rule of thumb is that ghosts make everything complicated. And ghosts are emerging, you know, and spreading all over the world, you know. And so if you already have like a complicated situation, then ghosts make that situation even more complicated. So it's a really vicious feedback loop, and not the kind of feedback loop we should be encouraging. Matt,
we're total downers, man.
I know. Well, this is inevitable.
and you know, and I'm saying this because like the rule with ghosts, right? If a ghost shows itself, ask it what it wants, right?
Right.
And so when there's sadness, ask, you know, why am I sad? Like, but no, like why? Like remember your why, because maybe the reason why you're sad is because you're not doing your why anymore. Maybe the reason why you're stressed is because you forgot your why.
And it's also very important to examine where there's a broken record, right? So if there's a constant, you know, broken record of a theme happening, that's also, you know, very, very much indicative of presence of a ghost that sort of dominated this situation. But humans, the reason why this tradition pays so much attention to humans is because, well, for one, we are human, and like, so we're speaking, you know, from our experience. But secondly, and very importantly, it's generally assumed in this cosmology that humans are excellent mediums. We are excellent mediums. And the primary medium that we are, the primary thing that we are mediums for is the content of our blood, which is the ancestry, like influences. Well, we're not limited to that. So this is one of those really poignant times
Well, this is the time to do, I call it take roll, right? When you are like literally sitting there, you're taking roll of the things in your life, and you're able to, it's a gratitude practice, and it's also a practice of letting go.
Very
But
important.
but the idea is like when you can just kind of zoom out and you can, like, because the mindfulness is just bringing the constant back into your consciousness, right? So sometimes that just has to do with sit there and just look around again. I mean, that's like one of the first exercises in my little situational awareness or situational mindfulness course is it's called roll call. Like you literally sit there and look at everything and then ask yourself how often you consider it. This is people, this is places, this is scripts. Like ask yourself, like if you can zoom out and observe yourself through a day, how many people do you see and say kind of the same thing at work? You meet, this guy, we all have our catchphrases and our scripts and our loops, but can you take roll? And then can you take roll of your internal, external, and trivial kind of habits, scripts, thoughts, feelings, all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, roll call is I mean, that's an art form in itself.
That's a good practice. Yeah. There's a lot of similarities between the perspective of Ming was. I was very happy when he pointed this out, I have to admit. Like he pointed out that there's there are similarities between the kind of broad-minded perspective of the dragon in the pig. That's also has this kind of broad capacity. They just don't understand it as well as a pig. They're just sort of pretend that they can follow along. So there's a bit more humility to the pig, mostly because they're less capable of systematizing the experience because it's in one ear and out the other. As a matter of course. But the thing that what you were saying reminded me of, and what I would add to that, is hexagram 31, I believe, which is it's called to be moved. This idea to be moved, and it's tracking inspiration in the body, and that's what the content of that hexagram is about. So what I would add is, like, if you're doing this kind of roll call in a pig moon, you should start with your physiology. You should start with like, my fingers are itchy, or my foot hurts, and just kind of like I'm working with those like very banal, sorts of experiences because they're relevant. They're extremely relevant in a pig moon. Your embodiment is not a mistake; it's an omen, in particular, it is a very strong omen in a pig moon at this time of year. Your embodiment actually tells the story.
It's funny you say that because like when you talk about that in your physical space, like I was telling someone, like when you acknowledge those things, it's not that they go away, but they don't get you. You're not surprised by them. And I was telling the story about, I used to walk home living in kind of a bad neighborhood, and I'd always walk home late, and there would always be this prostitute would come out and distract you while her two guys would come up behind you, right? And that was the thing. And so they had two ways to make money. You're either gonna go get something in the alley, And but it was funny because like when she would walk by, I'd see her coming up like, "Hey, what's going on?" And then like she'd start talking to me, but she'd have these guys. And the first time, like the first and the second time, like it's like I remember one time I saw them, I'm like, "Oh, hey, what's up, guys?" And I was like, "I'm cool," and I just kind of crossed the street and we're good. But just by seeing them and acknowledging them, they didn't do anything. Next time they came up, then they got a little closer, and I just looked at them and went, you need to take off now. That's all I said. I'm like, you take off. And they were just like, okay. But just by acknowledging them, and then after that, they never bothered me. Then they'd walk by and be like, hey, what's up? You know what I mean? And then we were good. But I remember that moment, and then that's kind of what I treat a lot of like my sadness and all these other things. I just don't want them surprising me. That's it. I'm okay with them being there. But like the day I forget to just walk by and go, hey, there's my sadness, there's my, anger, there's my depression, there's my joy. Even your joy can get you got, like just as bad, right? And so the idea is just to acknowledge those things, and they can't sneak up on you, right? You only get hit by what you don't see. And so much of this work is about just zoom out and it's like, it's not your identity. These are most of these places. But that's like saying your knee hurts. Well, yeah, don't be surprised that your knee hurts. Like it hurts. Right. So when your friends are like, we're going to go jogging it's be like, where are you guys going to go eat after? I'll meet you there.
The navigation of limitations is actually really important.
And it's freeing.
Especially in the, from here on out, 10, 11, and 12. And even going into the first moon, you should be cautious, not just jump out the,
When does the dragon? I'm kind of holding out everything right now until Dragon Year. I'm just kind of chilling.
Early February.
Oh, well, that's soon. All right, cool.
We're not that far. I mean, think about it like this. Winter is beginning, and then there's a month, essentially, about a month before we come to solstice. So it's about 5 weeks, until we get to the solstice period from when we're talking right now. So when this goes on to release, we'll be even closer. So it's roughly about that. And then we're basically at the bottom of the pool, and we'll be there for a little while. And then it's this kind of negotiation of the return of the light from there, for which people are in a way too much of a hurry. So at this particular point in time, even though we're not in the depths of yin quite yet, it is the going into the yin that actually can be very surprising, because there may be a lot of things that are uncovered, in that experience, in terms of our emotional reactions, other people's emotional reactions to us. That's why this kind of support for stability and routine, not exerting yourself too much, really appreciating things as they are, not poking the bear kind of thing, is what the Chinese would encourage during this time. Is accept people for who they are, or who they've shown themselves to be. Don't keep pressing them for them to change. Number one, is rude, and secondly, it's not going to happen right now. This is not the time to sort of expect more from our parents, for instance. There's no room for that. So the idea is, whatever comes up, the available chi of the moment in the pig moon is to play the ball where it lands. Even if it's uncomfortable, desperately uncomfortable. As Winston Churchill would say, when you're in hell, keep going, keep the ball rolling, and because you will, yes, I can say, you will come out of it. But if you spend all your time struggling instead of just keeping the ball rolling, then the light only gets dimmer, because you're burning out the yang qi that you have stored within. You should accept your confinement, is what hexagram 29, would say, accept your confinement, accept that you're in the pit, and then look for the message.
I just want to make some money here. Thank you to the people who are renting courses, right? The fall qigong. People are, it's you don't need to own it, just rent it during the season. That's cool. Thank you guys. And we had a blow up. Everyone exceeded my expectations on the workshop. So
that's so cool. Great. Sorry,
we missed you. Everyone was just so angry and upset that you weren't there. And so there's that. Yeah, man, this time, now I'm kind of coming to an end. I'm going to do another clinic. So anyone that didn't get body work or private sessions from me in person, I'm looking forward to one more run. I got to figure out when. I got to do a thing down in LA this weekend, and then I'm just organizing that.
Well, one of the closing things I'd say is that, when you think about the pig moon, there's always, this is an analogous science. This is an associative science. So in order to understand the moon you're in, think about going to bed. Think about the time of the day where you go to bed. And that's usually at 9 to 11 p.m. So so the chi of the moon itself is relaxing you toward this kind of sleep, toward this spaciousness without need for purpose. So it is sort of the whole day, even when the sun is out, is this kind of like, sleepy time. Like walk around in your pajamas if you can. Like go for it. Like it's not. There's no reason not to be comfortable. If you have the capacity to be comfortable, and honor those who can't be comfortable in their skin. Like find ways to be comfortable in your life, be comfortable in your body. Drop all the stuff that's bothering you about what you would rather have. Compost that like right away, because it will make your life better and all the people you love better. Like, and
Coming
as you
back
say,
here,
it's kind of cascading effect.
I've ripped the ass out of 2 pairs of pants already being back here.
Yeah,
it's just ridiculous, man.
Yeah,
I get just pants alone. This place is breaking me. I mean, look. This wasn't like that. This wasn't like that. I mean, this is all new, man. This is all.
You got to get those doers back,
dude. Now, anyways, I won't talk about the fact that they just like quality price. Quality price. The quality price thing. So yeah, oh man, nobody makes anything. Everyone makes things for pear-shaped benign lumps that sit around and like there's that. Or if it is durable, it's just like too much polyester or it doesn't. You know what I mean? It's like we've lost our way. But I'm not going to get into my 8-hour one-man show on how the quality of pants is really taken a hit.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
See the attached video.
It's called The Next Detroit. You know what I mean? How it's just yeah, I gotta run now that I'm all worked up. And yeah, man, let's get up soon. Let's go get a meal, man.
Oh yeah, I found a video for a dim sum spot in the city. So I know it's the city, but it's dim sum. So that might be worth it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Here's to a wonderful pig moon. What's the element?
Oh yeah.
You never even mentioned the element, dude. You're off task.
I did. It's water. Which is
I'm gonna edit
we had a water dog, so it's a water pig. Before we transitioned to wood. But remember, like water is the native element of pig. So it's like piggy. It's as pig as it gets.
Pig as it gets.
Yeah. Watch your dreams, Eat.
Can I say something? Watch your dreams. Don't call me up and tell me about them.
Oh yeah. I mean, here's the thing about watching your dreams. Like unless you're in a dream practice, especially in a water rabbit moon, mostly watching your dreams is a way of just reaffirming what's already working. So it's not about deciphering your dreams. It's essentially to recognize and thank them for coming by, and then you let it go. Like you can't. Ming would always say, like, you don't master your dreams. You experience them. You work with the material, not in some kind of like self-improvement, but just as a recognition. Like if you're on a train, or like, oh look, there's Idaho. Like you recognize where the train is going, and like that's about the extent of it. Especially in a water rabbit year, during a water rabbit year, all your dreams are just an expression of something that's resolving and something that's working through. That's going to do the process whether you recognize it or not. So don't spend your time trying to like catalog and figure out and like what's it a reflection of and like study it. It's very aggressive. We should be very yin with the experience of our dreams. If you're yin with the experience of your dreams, more of them will come.
Yeah, too much solving and helping. Yeah, less solving and helping.
No need. Yeah, no need.
Nothing to solve. Awesome.
Nothing to solve.
Dude, hold on, can I give you a round of applause? Can I give you a round of applause? Go on the website and sign up for things. And other than that, let's see.